So let's talk about how to teach your child about shapes. Your child probably already has a lot of experience with shapes, from books and shows that they've watched. There's a great book called Mouse Shapes, and it's about these three little mice, and they collect shapes and do different things with them. My daughter has another one. It's about a snake who makes all the animals' favorite shapes, and so she already knew them all that way. Maybe if your child has, I don't know what this toy is called. It used to be made by Tupperware, but it's basically a cube that's about this big, and you flip it over and it has different shaped holes in it, and so you have to match them up that way. And so whenever my kids would play with this, I would tell them that's a triangle, and this kind of shape we just called star because it's kind of a complex shape for them. But when your kids get older, you probably want to start doing some formal lessons to teach them about the different characteristics of shapes. So you start with usually triangle because it's the most recognizable. So you want to teach them things like tri means three, like tricycle or triceratops. And so a triangle has three angles. If it doesn't close, then it's not a triangle. And it has three straight sides. So if it has a curved, wonky side, that's not a triangle. And so that's why it's nice to use something like craft sticks, because when they draw, a lot of times they have a hard time drawing straight lines. And so you could connect these with glue, or if you wanted to use these over and over again, you could use like magnets or Velcro, because a lot of times if you ask them to make a triangle, it's not going to be an actual triangle like that. You could also do this with like pretzels and gumdrops or pretzels and marshmallows. I've also had them build shapes with straws, with pipe cleaners, and that one's nice for later on when you do 3D shapes. But you would start with triangle, and you want to make sure to show them that triangles can be this way. There can be small, that's not an actual triangle, but you get the idea, different types of triangles. And then you usually would do rectangle because it still has that tangle, and then square, and then circle, oval, hearts, crescent, or you can call it moon, or kite and diamond. Those words, some schools use different ones, so you might want to teach them both words. For different kinds of practicing, you could give them cardboard tubes and just make it into the shape. I've got a heart there. And so then you can give them some paint to dab this in and then make a beautiful picture like that. You can give them different kinds of things to play with. So usually you can find some sort of plastic or wooden things to build around with shapes. They can make different pictures with these. I've also seen at the dollar store they have like wooden puzzles. And if you couldn't find these, you could also make some out of foam or even like that hard kind of paper. I forgot the word right now. Sorry. Quarantine brain. I've made some out of foam like this. I made up a whole bunch of these, and so then we can play a game. So I put a circle down or like a hula hoop or something, and then I put in a whole bunch of shapes that all follow one rule. Like, what's my rule? And they look at it and they're like, oh, squares. You are only collecting squares. Right, so there was only squares in the circle, and everything else was outside. And then they can pick and see if they can stump you about what their rule is. I've already shown this on another video, but you can do tangrams. So a tangram are these shapes, and they make up an actual big square, and then you can find patterns like this and print them or just draw them by hand. And this is good for kids to be practicing matching the shapes and flipping them all different ways. It can be challenging, especially if you don't draw in the shapes for them. So if you just had the blank picture, that would be like the next level where they have to figure out what shapes it would be to build it. Here's another cool thing. It's called a Geo Board. And you can buy these, they're usually plastic and they're about $10, but I couldn't afford one back then. And so I just got a craft board and had my husband nail in finishing nails. And this is a little bit dangerous, so know what your kid can handle. And the plastic Geo boards are really easy to break. So this was nice and sturdy. And you can buy Geo bands, but I just use old hair bands. And so then they can practice making shapes that way. And they can do different things. My daughter, she had a maze on here the other day. We found this great game this year. It's called Blink, and it's kind of like Uno. So it says 7 and up, but you could play it where you're just playing shapes, or you can also match these things by the number or by the color. And so this is just a fun game to play. It's kind of like where you hold a bunch of cards and then you try to get rid of your cards the quickest. So it's supposed to be like a race game, but there's different ways of playing this. You can also make busy bags. Busy bags are great, especially when like you're trying to cook dinner or you just need like a little break. So you always want to make sure that the busy bag is easy for them to open and close, because otherwise they'll never get closed. So here's one that I made. It's just a ribbon with a button on the end, and I just hand sewed that. And then I had cut out a bunch of shapes with holes in the middle that they could practice buttoning and unbuttoning, which is a nice skill for kids to pick up. I wish that I had made these out of felt, but I made them out of fleece. So they're a little bit too easy for getting the button through, but it's still a nice thing to practice. I thought I had one more thing. Oh, so you could put stickers on like a piece of paper. So draw them out whatever shape you're working on and then have them cover that with stickers is a nice thing to practice. And then this is kind of advanced. This is like next level of just to get them used to 3D shapes. So once they have that down, you can take a shape like this and put it on a string and spin it for them and ask them what that looks like. And they'll say, oh, that looks like an oatmeal container. Yes, we call that a cylinder. So when you spin a rectangle around, you get a cylinder. And when you spin a triangle around, oh, that's a cone. Yes, you know the word cone from like traffic cone. And when you spin a square, you also get a fat cylinder. When you spin a circle, this looks better when you do it up close for somebody. I don't know if I can do this good on here, but when you spin a circle around, it makes a sphere. And so just get them used to those words. And I keep a whole basket full of shapes, just things that I've collected, cardboard boxes that I've covered over in tape. So that way we can talk about those kinds of shapes. And I point out, well, this has a circle and a circle. And then the rest of this, if you could cut it open, it would actually be a rectangle. So that way they get used to how shapes are built up for each other. So there are some ideas for you of different things that you can do to teach your child about shapes. There you have it. It's not a big deal.